Hello and welcome to NCAA Regional Baseball Predictions here at Southeastern 16. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by Graham Jody and Jay Greason. We are about to unveil our field of 64 as it currently stands. And it's more than just that. We will answer your questions. We'll tell you who we had trouble with seating-wise. We'll tell you who we think's on the bubble, where the interesting hosting decisions are. Guys, I'm going to throw the bracket up here in just a minute. But I will tell you this was not easy. There's still a lot of baseball to be played. Sorting out the SEC was an absolute nightmare because you got so many teams at the top of the RPI with impressive wins. But this is the fun we have with this. Cannot wait for the NCAA baseball tournament here coming up in a month.
It's hard to believe we got 3 weekends left before, all the madness starts.
Yeah.
Does it go by fast for you guys?
Yes, this time of year it really does.
Well, I honestly think it's like the first 2 hills in the Scream Machine at Six Flags. The preseason is clucka, 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 clucka. Then the conference starts and it goes, wow! And then we're starting to clucka, clucka, clucka. The next couple 3 weeks where a whole lot of the die is already cast, we got sure, the drama in Starkville and teams trying to get on the proper side of the bubble adds some scenario. And I know this is on your list to talk about, Chris, but Texas could put the gear up for 3 weeks and they're still going to get a national seed. So, but once that field is announced, then it like goes into the loop-de-loop at the mind bender combined with the great gasp. I got a great gasp story, by the way. And that circly thing that flips over itself and makes every little kid throw up.
I'm not going to lie. That's the only time in my life I passed out. The double loop at Six Flags, like midway up the second one, like I was out. Woke up, ride was over. What happened?
My wife got on the great gasp, and I know we got a ton of baseball to get to. The great gasp is the one that goes up like half the distance to the Sears Tower. They drop you and the parachute comes out. She got on with 2 of her relatives who were, shall we politely say, heavy. And so the bench of this thing starts going rickety, 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 rickety. It's having a hard time raising it. So my wife was as panicked as a 12-year-old going up this thing as you could possibly imagine. And then when it just started going 90 miles an hour down, she just completely, she didn't faint, but she completely blacked out. She doesn't remember a thing about it.
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
No thank you to any and all of that. But I tell you what, you will thank us for. Regional projections. All right, I just finished these, and I'm gonna say a few things, okay? There's a lot of baseball to be played. In some cases, I did some projections. In some cases, I had a really, really hard time knowing what to do with teams. And I think maybe some of the background and questions you have might be more interesting than what we actually put on the screen. But I know people want to see projections and what it looks like. So we'll start there. You guys have not seen this. This is what I've come up with. And I think we've got a little bit off the screen at the bottom. I'll tell you what is there that I don't have. We've got Arizona State and St. Mary's as the 3 and 4 seeds at the bottom with Irvine, and Southern Miss and Ball State as the 3 and 4 seeds with Ole Miss. Ole Miss was just one of a number of teams that had a lot of trouble with, guys. But give me your thoughts on what you're seeing. I think, guys, sorting out the national seeds with the SEC and the ACC is almost a nightmare. I will tell you this. I think right now you've still got, in my mind, 24 teams in contention to host. The ones that aren't hosting that I have as possibilities here: Alabama, NC State, Louisville, UCLA, Arizona, Oregon, Oklahoma, and Dallas Baptist. I think everybody else, it's going to be maybe unrealistic is a good way to put it. And I think you've got probably anybody that's hosting, other than maybe Coastal Carolina and Oregon State, is still in contention for a national seed. So there's going to be a lot of variability. This will look very different in a couple of weeks, might look very different in a week, but wanted to get some stuff on the board now just to get a conversation going. So what do you guys think?
I guess first, let me ask you this. Did you lean like geography wise, or did that have zero impact?
I leaned heavily on geography, very heavily.
Okay. The reason I ask is like most of the time it feels like the committee does the geography thing, but there's always seems to be one regional where it's just like we got 4 random teams from 4 different parts of the country and everybody's in this one regional.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times that's West Coast teams, especially if there's not a lot of West Coast hosts. This time I'm just not sure there's going to be, guys. I think Irvine's going to be. I don't know what to make of Oregon State, which is still ahead of Oregon in the metrics, but has lost 4 straight to Oregon. I put them in as the 15 for now based on the metrics because I can't read the committee's mind. You could even see that flip. The Oregon could be the host there in that same regional, but that's one of the teams that's going to be really tricky.
So, again, I double-checked the committee. There's only one person in that part of the country, the athletic director at Portland. So if they want to throw a bone to somebody in that part of the country, maybe that's a benefit for Oregon State. I'm looking at Oregon State's schedule right now. They're 32-11. Again, they're just kind of pieced together a schedule. They played just a whole bunch of different random opponents. Like they even played Rutgers this season. They played Nebraska. They did play UC Irvine. They got Hawaii at Hawaii next for a 4-game series. And then they got Iowa and Long Beach State. So I'm looking to see what Iowa's actually in first place in the Big Ten. So, I mean, if you're looking at Oregon State and could they potentially host, like they did their best to try to put themselves in a position to do so. Their RPI might not be great, but I think just like we've talked about a lot, laundry matters, and they got one of the best programs in college baseball, and they're the last team not affiliated with the SEC that won the national championship. So, maybe depending on how, even if they, kind of fizzle down the stretch, they could still potentially host. Just thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with this, and I love the people in our chat. Nobody said it yet. You can disagree with almost anything you want to in projections. Ain't nobody put more work in than my man Chris Lee on diagramming this stuff and mapping this stuff out. I didn't even know Bryant had a baseball team, and they're a 4 seed somewhere. So, I mean, it is completely fair because we all have our opinions, and there's some of the things that I disagree with. But a tip of the visor, my good man, on some detailed prep work.
Yeah, I've been putting a lot of time in this the last couple of weeks, and I won't show you because I won't bore you. One of the things I've considered too is the Boyd's World Need Report. It'll tell you got X games left. You need to win this number to get top 45 RPI, this number to get top 32, that kind of thing. And boy, the SEC has still got so much in play. There was one easy thing, and that was making Texas the number 1 overall seed. And I see it. I'm getting some blowback on Texas A&M being a 2 seed. That is a little projection. That is also going, how many teams in the country, gosh, they've won at Arkansas, won at Tennessee. They had some guys hurt. I think that's a team that could make a run and win the SEC tournament with the depth of its starting pitching and the shortened tournament format. Right now, I don't think you can justify A&M as a 2 seed. But, guys, they've been so hot. I know they lost 3 this week, and they lost 3 one-run games to Texas. Use 3 one-run games to Texas, you are legit in its ballpark. So that one is going to be at Texas, right? That's going to be one of my most controversial ones. I did project ahead a little bit, but I don't know. I just think the committee's going to be sitting there. Are we really going to give Texas somebody A&M as a 3 seed? I think common sense will play in somewhere too. Has A&M earned it with the body of the work yet? No, but I believe in the talent to get there.
I think we should kind of start here, and we'll kind of filter through this. If this bracket works out, Kevin O'Sullivan's going to do cartwheels to practice the day after Selection Monday. Because a 3-seed Florida going against NC State and Coastal Carolina is not anything those higher 2 seeds want to see. But it's to your point. The committee's going to include a couple of SEC teams that are going to have losing conference records that are going to have a much more powerful RPI than the teams seated ahead of them.
Mm-hmm. Let me say, NC State is interesting too, because NC State is currently winning the ACC, and I think NC State is going to be projected as a host a lot of places. I'm just not sure that team is as good as the record. The metrics aren't great. They had a bad midweek loss last night, dropped to 28 in the RPI. So I already had NC State as a 2 seed, and last night kind of solidified that. But that's one place I could be dead wrong.
Just looking at some of these, Auburn's got to be thinking like Chris, what do we do? What do we do to you? You got Louisville and Troy. Yeah. Troy, who's already beaten Auburn, and Troy, who's ranked, I think they're top 20. Boy, that would be a tough one. And then North Carolina, Arizona, Kansas State. That's a tough regional too. Kansas State, remember, they got the win against Arkansas earlier this season. And Arizona, like, they started off ice cold, but they've kind of turned it around their first season in the Big 12.
And to that point, if Auburn did survive what looks to be the toughest, maybe one of the toughest pods on that thing, you then got to go to Foley Field where you've already been swept. If this holds true in a 6-11 type of thing, nobody wants to see Georgia to be matched up with a super regional in Foley Field.
You did a nice job of pairing the rivals together.
I completely agree with that.
Like the Georgia Tech. Not so much that Auburn Troy is a rival, but I mean, they're literally right down the road from each other, and they played each other twice.
Ole Miss and Southern Miss.
Yeah, that happened. I feel like that happens almost every other year.
By the way, teams with an asterisk are projected champions. I didn't just go by who was first place in the league right now. I went, looked down, and all right, who might win this thing with every league? Although I kind of did a little bit with the power conferences, but the mid-majors and the low majors, I didn't do that as much. Wide ass who's paired with who, it flows down. Like Texas is paired with Coastal, Florida State is paired with Vanderbilt. So just take your groups of 2s and go down, and that's how that goes.
Yeah, just like the NCAA basketball tournament. You know, year 1 plays the 16 seed, 8 plays the 9, 5, 12, that kind of thing.
I love the way in the chat, Nick, and this I will forever use this. Regional seeds that add up to 17 meet in the super regionals.
Say that again.
The regional seeds that added together equal 17 are the ones that meet in the super regionals. Good and call. Graham, were you completely expecting in Chris's, after saying the asterisk are projected, I was waiting for like a deep dive on Holy Cross on how their lefty-righty splits.
Not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He knows the second baseman's social security number, that kind of thing.
not on those teams. The SEC, we might get you there, but and I've already started doing a little bit of prep on some of these teams. What else was I going to say? Oh, I did go heavy geography and heavy rivalry, and that usually isn't how it doesn't always pair up quite like that. This is more regional than they usually end up, but I do wonder, guys, with the NCAA being in a little bit of a money crunch with all the money that's going to have to get paid out. I mean, Oregon State would make for fantastic, better TV ratings. I mean, Georgia, Georgia Tech, those kind of things. I'm projecting that in a little bit just because, like, hey, if that's going to make for better TV and better money, that would make a lot of sense. And I don't think it's unfair either. I think it'd be great. I hope the bracket looks like I've mapped it out here.
Well, and
Yeah.
I love your Knoxville regional and how it's for East Tennessee and Tennessee Tech, teams that, I mean, sure, they may get to regionals a bunch, but your fans can then, and your family can load up and go from Johnson City or Cookeville to Knoxville and do it affordably.
Chris, how many of the outside of the Sun Belt, how many of the Group of 5 leagues do you think will get multi-bids?
Oh gosh, I've mapped that out.
Sun Belt, like what? We're saying 3 for the Sun Belt. That's a really, really good Group of 5 league.
I think ASUN, A10 one bid leagues, America East one big league.
OVC.
American might be 2. By the way, the Big Sky no longer exists for baseball. So know that. The Big 10, I think, is multi. The Big 12, multi. I think the Big East is going to be multi, depending on Xavier. Do you just want to know the one bid leagues, or do you just want to know everybody?
I was just curious which, like, Group of 5 multi-bid leagues you got.
Okay, I think that the American, the Big East, the CAA, Conference USA, Sun Belt, Southland, probably not SoCon, but maybe, all could be multi-bid leagues. Could. They're not all going to be that, but
who? Let me look at Conference USA outside of
Dallas Baptist.
Well, okay, Dallas Baptist, Western Kentucky.
Yep. And I had Western as my 3rd team out. They beat Kentucky yesterday. Third from the bottom in. They got a big win at Kentucky yesterday. I think Western's got like a top 5 or 10 ERA in the country, and it's played a ridiculously easy schedule.
They had a bad weekend though.
Yeah, that's true.
They lost at FIU.
But you start getting to that area, and you're competing with, Iowa, Kansas State, McNeese, Notre Dame, Southeast Louisiana, maybe Stanford, Mississippi State, Virginia. And a lot of those teams did not have great weeks and didn't have good days yesterday. My last 4 in, I had Connecticut, Western Kentucky, Iowa, Kansas State. And I have a lot of doubts about all those teams, but someone had to go in. Now, here's the thing. Bid steals are probably going to happen potentially, and then those are the teams that start getting picked off.
Right. So, like, who would be your sleepers? Like, who do you feel can make some noise?
Anybody in the SEC? I'm serious. Like, I think Florida could win a regional as a 3. I know everybody's down on Tennessee and Arkansas, but I just think there's a lot of talent for both those teams. Tennessee's quad 1 record, by the way, is really good. Really, really good. Like, you start looking at the metrics, and I know they've slumped, but if you just use that as your guide, which is what the committee's going to do, it becomes hard to justify them. LSU, I think the metrics are going to catch up. They played a week out of conference schedule. That's hurt some of their numbers, but taking the series from Tennessee, and then they got a pretty nice midweek win over a Southeastern Louisiana team that's in the discussion. And where that helps you is everybody else is playing, RPI 250 teams. You're playing like a top 50 level team. So they got a boost in the RPI. I think LSU went up like 2 or 3 spots in the RPI overnight. You start to really pay attention to that kind of stuff late. But it was very interesting to me. Tennessee's metrics remain really, really good in spite of the fact that the Vols have not played well lately.
Yeah, well, Sam in the chat just says they don't pass the eye test. What do you think?
Well, I think that everybody has 2 weeks out of the year where they don't pass the eye test, to be honest with you. I mean, name me a team that's not been the case with this year other than Texas.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's Tennessee and Arkansas. Last week it was Ole Miss,
Yeah.
But I will say what's interesting for Tennessee, like They got Auburn and Vandy coming up.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's not guaranteed by any means.
I'm going to be super interested to see what the committee does with both those teams, because right now, if the season ended right now, I think you could put based on the metrics, I think you could put Vandy in the top 4 nationally. I really think you could. Now, do I think Vanderbilt's that good? I don't. But that gets into the how much is the committee going to pay attention to your resume metrics, and how much is the committee going to say this is how good we think you are. And by the way, a tool that everybody needs to check, if you haven't, go to kpisports.net. Nobody is talking about this much as far as I know, but that's the resume indicator. That's their version of ESPN's, not BPI, but ESPN does the resume metric for basketball. KPI determines what you've done, the quality of your wins. And I think Vanderbilt was either 2 or 3 after last night. And look, if Vanderbilt, wins 17 or 18 games in the conference, I think that's going to be a national seed probably. It's going to have better metrics than like LSU, Tennessee, and maybe Arkansas. But then that becomes, does the committee think that they're a better team than those? I don't think they are. I think that's going to play in. But I think Auburn interesting too. Now, Auburn's KPI dropped to 9, but you look at the teams it's beaten, the weekends it's had, that's going to be another case of a team where does the committee lean more on what it's done, or does it think it is in that Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas type of tier? And I don't have an answer.
Well, that's why this weekend is huge for Auburn. They got to go on the road and start to win some of these. They're 4-8 this season on the road.
I don't know if there's more at stake for two teams that are dumped, probably first-round hosts, but Tennessee could solidify itself against Auburn, and Auburn could catapult. Is Auburn still 1 in the strength of schedule?
Yes. You
take 2 or 3 in Lindsey Nelson Stadium, and you're making a statement about being a national seed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They've also got South Carolina, which I wonder if Carolina is going to throw in the towel on the season potentially. I just don't think you got Ethan Petrie's out. That might be 3 easy wins at home. The problem for Auburn, it's on the road 2 or 3 times, and the last one is going to be Ole Miss, which is going to be playing for a lot of stuff too. Hosting, maybe national seed, that kind of thing. Somebody's asking what LSU's tier is. I think LSU could be as high as number 2 overall. I've got North Carolina there right now because the metrics are a little bit better. And LSU has got at A&M, Arkansas, at South Carolina, so that's not going to be easy. I'm telling you, my head spins when I try to sort out who's going to win some of these series coming up, because they're going to have a big, big, big impact on what you see in terms of seeding and national seats.
Yeah.
If we set the over-under at 8 first-round hosts from the league, which is what you have in this Rand McNally roadmap, which, again, disagree with the numbers, but unless you're Stevie Wonder, you cannot disagree with the color code. And do not doubt the amount of research that Chris Lee put into this. So, but is 8 the over-under on regional host for the league?
I think it is. I think here's what I believe. I think you've got LSU, Tennessee, Georgia, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Auburn, and possibly Ole Miss. Ole Miss's issue is the metrics aren't as strong as those other teams, but you finish strong, you could get in there. I think Alabama, metric-wise, actually has a better chance to be a national seed maybe than Ole Miss. And I've got Alabama as a 2 seed. I could have had them hosting, though. I just don't know if it's close. I think the committee's going to punt and go to an Oregon State or a Coastal before it would give the SEC a 9th seed. Alabama, by the way, has got to go to Vandy this weekend, which has been super tough at home. Then it's got Georgia, which I think could be a bad matchup, and then it goes to Florida. So, like, if you stop the season today, I think Alabama would be a host. I'm just a little concerned about Alabama's ability to handle what's ahead because it's not been playing as well lately. And by the way, anybody in the chat, if you got a question or you say, oh, that looks stupid or why'd you do that, just ask me. I probably will have a reason. You may not agree with it, but I think that's some of the value in what we're doing here is just to tell you, because it's guys, it's not going to look like this. And I think the interesting part is, okay, what are all the little pieces in play that determines what this looks like when we hit Selection Monday?
In your roadmap, I just scanned it and I didn't see anything, but you do not have any two SEC teams in the same regional, correct?
No, I didn't put any two conference teams in the same regional, which made it a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And you've almost got to start with the SEC and ACC and sort through those because there's going to be so many reps. But I think that's a rule. They're not going to put two teams from the same conference in the same regional.
Yeah, that almost hardly ever happens. Now,
right.
super regionals, totally different story.
Yeah. Well, you can't control that. Yeah. But I'll tell you, if it plays out like this, Florida State's doing cartwheels too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Do you guys think there's a potential if we set the number of regional hosts, and this is kind of what we do on close to a daily basis in season, do you think the committee could get SEC weary? I mean, because we've mentioned a lot of schools whose resumes – is Ole Miss's resume better than Coastal Carolina's? I don't think there's any doubt about that. But is Alabama's potentially? Is Oklahoma's potentially? Is Kentucky's probably? I mean, but you don't want to look up and have 12 SEC teams hosting a regional.
Yeah, it's a fair point just because the committee is, humans after all. There's only one SEC person on it. So, I mean, we see it in all the other sports. SEC fatigue is a very, very real thing. So that wouldn't shock me by any means.
And see, I actually downgraded some of the teams just because of that. Like, I think if we're just doing a blind thing and we're putting, Alabama versus some of these, I think Alabama's a host today. But I just think if they come out and say, and Oklahoma's another team, I promise we talk about Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a team that could still host with the hot run to end. I'm not expecting it, but it's not impossible. Oklahoma has got Ole Miss at Kentucky and Texas. The problem with Oklahoma is the metrics have dropped a little bit, 27 in KPI, 23 in RPI. And I think that's the part that's going to make it tough for Oklahoma to get in the regional hosting conversation. But I don't think they're dead.
A lot of Oregon love in the chat.
And see, that's one of the questions I have too. I think that is a weird situation because Oregon just took 4 from Oregon State. I think you could even flip that and make Oregon the host. Oregon's metrics, this is crazy, guys. 9-1 in quad 1, no quad 2 games, but they're 17-9 in quad 3. And they're 5-2 in quad 4. That's 11 losses in quad 3 and 4. That's a lot of losses to be a host, which is why I've still got Oregon State hosting, but I have no idea how that's going to play out. I think they are going to want to put another team out west probably, and I do wonder if they give Oregon State a little bit of grace for not having a conference and having to travel everywhere. Yeah. And also, as you said, the laundry, or Jay said that, I guess. Yeah, that is a premium program. And they've got some decent series wins. They took 2 or 3 against Irvine. They took 2 or 3 against Xavier, took 2 or 3 against Cal Poly. By the time we get there, that Oregon series will be a month in the rearview mirror. And I wonder, how that plays out then.
My question for Oregon would be, let's say he's a legit and real candidate for Mississippi State. How much of a distraction, if any, is that going to be down the stretch?
I would think some.
So not saying that he's getting the job, but it's definitely something to watch.
Sam asks, how many SEC teams will win the Big West?
A lot.
Probably 10.
15.
Irvine is a legitimately good team, though. I mean, I think that's going to be a team that gets a national seed, and I think it will have earned it.
I'll stand by 15. Maybe not South Carolina if the lug nuts have fallen off, but I mean,
with Petrie out now.
Yeah.
Yeah, South Carolina would not win that league. They don't have the pitching to match up with Irvine. But
I'm trying to see if their stadium has lights.
Sam's taking issue with Xavier. Xavier's got all the metrics that match up with getting them in a tournament.
Yeah, but here's the thing with them. If they don't win the Big East tournament, are they getting in?
Well, I think I do have them as the champion, but I did have them being worthy of an at-large based on the metrics.
They don't have lights. I know that.
Yeah, they're 30 RPI, 41 KPI. So again, that puts you in as a 3 seed.
And
if they don't have usually lights, gotten in.
If they don't have lights, do they have to wear the Chico Bail Bonds Bears uni? I mean,
they should.
I have one of those.
They should
wear that sometime.
Tiger Brother 12. West Virginia still hasn't proven they've beaten a good team in a series. You are correct.
Yeah. I mean, their schedule has been pitiful, and I think they've picked off I think they got the easy, unbalanced schedule in the Big 12. But, man, they've lost 5 games. I mean, it's hard to play, anybody and only lose 5 times.
Do you have what their record is against quad ones? I just don't think they have played a lot of quad one opponents.
Yeah, they have not. As of yesterday, they haven't even. They're 5-1 against quad one.
So 6.
8-3 quad 2, 12-1 quad 3, 10 in KPI.
So out of almost 40 games, they played 6 quad one opponents,
which is 9 days in this league.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
I mean, and it gets a little tougher. They've got Texas Tech, who's nowhere near the tournament. They go to Kansas State, which I've got in barely, and they host Kansas. I mean, their wins, guys, they have beaten Arizona, and they took 2 at UCF, which is not even the tournament. I think they've only beaten 1 team that is going to be in the NCAA tournament is a 1, 2, or 3 seed.
Arizona?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Unless I've missed something.
Yeah. I give them credit, though. They did the thing, their longtime head coach, retired, and they did the thing they promoted from within. So this is the sport right now for West Virginia. They are all in because they fired their football coach, men's basketball coach left. Not a lot of people are happy. So this is what they're putting all their energy in, and they're having a good season.
And if they play Country Road Take Me Home by John Denver, that place goes bonkers.
Right.
Have you guys ever been there before?
I've
been to Morgantown.
Okay.
I have not, but
I've been a couple of times. And when we were flying in, just looking out the airplane window, it was like, this is exactly what I thought West Virginia would look like. I mean, it's a great college town, but it's like, man, what I envisioned in my mind is exactly what this place looks like.
After Katrina, they played the Sugar Bowl in Atlanta, and West Virginia and Georgia played. And I'm telling you, and I covered that game, when that football fan base starts firing into the heart of the first verse of Country Road, that's hairs on your arm standing up moment.
Nick caught something. I screwed up. Kansas State and Arizona can't be in the same regional. And I'll tell you what happened. I put Kansas State in at the last second because somebody lost yesterday, and I had to find one more. So he's right.
Also,
They can't be in the same regional, but you could probably swap them out with Iowa, send Kansas State to Fayetteville, and which I'm sure they'd love because Kansas State beat them earlier, and put Iowa in North Carolina. Iowa's another team with an unbelievably interesting regional.
yeah, I give you grace for the Arizona thing. It's hard to keep track with a conference realignment.
I mean, in my
they're in
head,
the
they're
Big
still
12
yeah, right. Yeah.
All right, tear it up. Start again. We'll reconvene in
No,
14
that's
days.
it. That's my switch. That's probably what the committee feels like. Like you're sitting there and you got it all figured out, and then something drops at the last minute. It's like, okay, we got to switch two teams. Here we go.
All right. Well, no, the committee feels like pass me another caviar and refill my Dom Perignon, and let's just throw darts at a board.
Yeah.
Hard to argue against that.
Let's see.
Chris, have you
LSU.
mentioned who your first four out were?
Oh yeah.
My first four out, and I didn't update this through yesterday, and this is how weak the bubble is. I think McNeese, Notre Dame, Southeastern Louisiana, and Stanford. Stanford would be a projectability thing that they get hot and win some games, because they have played some brutal series.
Who do you have in from the Southland? You just named two Southland schools.
I had UTRGV.
Okay.
I think is the champion, and it might have been it. But you got a lot of teams. You got McNeese and Sela are both in the mix. The problem is they just haven't done a lot in terms of getting big wins. Sela had a chance yesterday in Baton Rouge and just got boat raced.
Yeah. They were supposed to play Ole Miss too in the midweek. That game got moved because of rain. So that could be big for actually Ole Miss and Southeastern Louisiana RPI wise. So they might actually try to make that game up.
Virginia's also got a chance. Like Virginia and Stanford, Virginia's got a really good conference record. It's above 500, but the metrics are awful. And Stanford's got pretty good metrics, but the conference record is what they're 7-17. So those are two that I've got kind of on the radar to watch based on what goes on. Taylor has a point here. Clemson, I think, yeah, I'm not I love D1. I'm not a fan of their poll that they came out with this week. I don't know what was going on there, but that was.
Yeah, it was like they made the decision. All right, this week ACC heavy. All right, ACC heavy. Let's go.
Yeah. Colin, the issue, if you caught it late with Tennessee, is I know Tennessee's been on a slide, but the metrics are still really good. I think they're 12-4 in quad one. KPI's got them at 4. You can think what you want about the way they played lately, but the numbers say that's a national seed.
But like the one series they did win, let's say, Ole Miss is able to hold on in the 9th inning and take 2 out of 3. Are you looking at them differently? That would be 4 series losses in a row.
Probably. I mean, and look, their best series wins. Well, they've actually taken 3 pretty good ones at Alabama, at Ole Miss, and the sweep at Florida. I know that the Florida one was opening weekend, and nobody thought Florida was any good. Sweeping Florida is going to turn out to be an accomplishment, and winning both of those as road series. They also took a game against LSU and A&M, so even though they lost the series, they didn't get swept. Now, I think here's the thing. If they face playing against Auburn, Vandy, and at Arkansas, then we're going to have a different conversation. But I have a feeling they're going to come out with a winning record in those games. And if they do, even if they go 5-4, that's 18 wins in the conference. That's going to get them a national seed.
Tennessee also has the argument that how big of a different prism are we viewing them through if they don't give up the big home run in Baton Rouge?
Yep. That's totally fair.
Clemson's going to be another one to watch because right now the RPI and the KPI both have them outside of the top 8. But I suspect the ACC is going to get 3 nationals, and they got to go to Florida State, Duke, and at Pitt. I think they'll win enough to get there. Could be wrong. They've also got 19 wins in Quad 1 and Quad 2. They're 19-10. And I don't know that anybody's got more than that other than Texas.
Mm-hmm.
On this list here, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's 5 national seeds from the SEC and 3 from the ACC. Is there a non-Southern team with the most to gain to try to get one of those national seeds?
The teams that can get there are Irvine and West Virginia and maybe TCU. But man, those teams have not. We just went over what West Virginia's banked,
right?
Which is 1 win against a team that I think is going to be in the field as a 3 seed or better.
What about Kansas?
Kansas is kind of the same thing. Now look, here's something to watch. Kansas plays West Virginia the last week of the year. And that is in Kansas, I think. Let me see. No, that's in West Virginia, I believe. Somebody can fact check me on that. That could be a series to watch. I just am not sure Kansas. I don't think Kansas has done enough with what it's got left that it can host. Now, maybe if it wins the conference and the committee's going, we're going to put the conference champion for the Big 12, maybe so. I think West Virginia's out pretty far ahead in that one, right?
I got it right here. They got a 1-game lead over Kansas. They're the 2 hottest teams in the Big 12. West Virginia's won 14 in a row. Kansas has won 6 in a row.
Yeah.
Isn't that, to make a Revenge of the Nerds reference, isn't that like to be the hottest team in the Big 12, all things considered, is like being the hottest Tri-Lam date at the spring formal.
Well, hey, when you're comparing to the ACC and the SEC, I agree. TCU is another team that could get in there. I may not have mentioned them. I just don't think Coastal Carolina is going to have enough to get in the national seed mix, and I think Oregon State probably blew it with the way it played at Oregon because it's got. I mean, okay, go to Hawaii, win the series. That would be an accomplishment. That's a tough place to play. Take a series from Iowa, sure, that's nice. Iowa's another really weird team, but I just don't think that's enough to get them back there. So I think your teams in the national seed conversation: Texas, North Carolina, LSU, Clemson, Tennessee, Georgia, Arkansas, Florida State, Vandy, West Virginia, Auburn, TCU, and maybe Ole Miss or Alabama.
Did you say Vandy?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That I would agree with all that. And we got a couple good questions here. Tiger Brother 12. He asked if Auburn hosts at 15-15 with the strength of schedule that they have, wouldn't they be in a top 5 RPI? Didn't play Missouri. Just kind of feels like Auburn should host. Yeah, I totally agree.
I agree.
And this is one for the group from Jim Dillingham. What does Oklahoma need to do in the final 3 weeks to host?
Well, they got a monster one this weekend. They got Ole Miss. It's in Norman, I think. So
yeah,
you got to start there, and then whoever they closed with
at Kentucky and Texas.
Yeah. So if they're gonna host, Jim,
like 2 of those 3 series,
yeah, they would have earned it.
Get to 17-10, and I think you can get there. Or 17-13. Here's the issue. Let's see. Needs report for Oklahoma. I'm trying to remember. Did Oklahoma play yesterday, or was it one of the teams that got rained out?
I'll pull it up real quick.
They got rained out, Wichita State.
Okay.
Okay. Oklahoma here's needs report as of yesterday, so this is a day old. It could have changed a little bit, though I doubt it. Oklahoma needs to win. It's got 10 left, needs to win 2 to make top 45 of RPI. That's important because usually if you're top 45 RPI, unless there's a good reason to exclude you, you're very much in the large conversation, if not in. 3 or 4 wins to make top 32. You got to win 8 to make top 16, and you got to win all 10 to make top 8 in RPI. I think that's the issue and why I had Oklahoma a little lower, because Oklahoma's now got to win 8 of 10 against Ole Miss, at Kentucky, and Texas. And I cannot remember who. Let's see who their other midweek would be.
That's a tall. I mean, not impossible, but
8 of 10. That tall order is like saying, "Woo, look, Manute Bol." That's a tall dude.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. It'd be 8 of 9 now that they had one rained out.
Oof, okay.
Well, wait. Maybe you take one off all the numbers because they didn't play Wichita State. But anyway, you would have to get at least one, and not you would basically have to get 7 wins in those 9 games. That's going to be tough.
Yeah. Doable, but certainly challenging.
Well, maybe they can schedule like a midweek off game against the St. Louis Cardinals, considering how tough that schedule is on the way home.
Just get it in.
Yeah.
Busch Stadium.
Let's see. Somebody's saying LSU's regional is a cakewalk.
Have you seen what Chris has done for Tennessee? Tennessee would say, sign us up for that.
Yeah, and I went heavy geography. I'll tell you, Virginia Tech is one that, like, I look at what it's done, and I look at the metrics, and I cannot make sense of why the RPI is as low as it is. It's won some big series, and so two might be a little high or aggressive for Virginia Tech, but it's done some good stuff.
Now, we talked earlier about West Virginia singing Country Road, Take Me Home. Virginia Tech, when that football stadium gets rocking to a little Metallica, is salty.
Yeah. That's a beautiful town, by the way. Blacksburg in the fall. My goodness. If you can make that. No, you got to drive through the middle of nowhere from where I am in the Nashville area to get there, but it is is beautiful. I went to a game there once. Been a minute, but
you can go see Vandy there in person.
I could. What? I doubt I will. I don't think I'm road tripping anywhere this fall. When you got an 11-year-old boy and a 13-year-old daughter, you just don't road trip much when your wife's working.
Nick Ferguson. I would say Oklahoma versus Ole Miss series winner is a host. Maybe, but we'll see. They got to close strong too.
Problem is you got to play Texas.
Yeah. Ole Miss has Auburn and State left. So Oklahoma's got the more challenging schedule.
By the way, speaking of scheduling oddities in the league, Vanderbilt, I think, is the only team that does not play Missouri, South Carolina, and Mississippi State. But it also doesn't get Texas or LSU.
That's kind of hard to do, right? You miss the bottom 3, and then you miss the first place team.
Right. I do wonder, too, if it gets down to you got to choose between SEC teams. Is the committee going to look at who played Missouri and who did not?
I bet they will.
Because I think they're on the fast track to going 0-30.
I don't know how much that will weigh in terms of getting in, because I think it's pretty clear, especially after the news from Starkville this week, it's going to be a tall order for the 3 SEC teams not on your Ram McNally here to find a way in. And we know Missouri's got no chance. But, I mean, I think SEC fatigue will drop teams from the one line more than whether they did or did not get Missouri.
Yeah. The team that I think that I've been probably most unfair to right now, based on the metrics, is Vandy, because everything right now says they're, based on the metrics, as a 2 or 3 seed. They got more wins against anybody in the field in terms of teams that will get an at-large bid. But do you look at them and say that's a team that can go blow for blow and take they got swept by Arkansas? I think they're going to lose in Knoxville. Didn't play LSU, didn't play Texas. I'm just not sure eye test they're going to stack up as national seed caliber. But the metrics have squarely got them there at the moment.
When's the last time Vandy won in Knoxville?
21.
Okay. So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
I could also see, Chris, and this is the utmost picking of nits, I could see an ETSU or a Tennessee Tech going to Nashville as much as I could to see them going to Knoxville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tennessee Tech especially, that's closer. Here's another one that's weird, is Georgia. I've got Georgia ahead of Vanderbilt right now. The metrics are great, but, of course, Georgia got swept in Nashville. And I think where you can get really messed up if you start comparing teams to each other, you almost have to do this if you're not going to tie yourself in knots. Just almost forget what happened when some of these teams played each other. Because you say, well, you got to put Vandy ahead of Georgia and Arkansas ahead of Vanderbilt. But if you do that, then you start saying, well, okay, this team got beat by the other team, but the metrics are better. And they're looking at these teams against the field rather than against each other. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it tough is, okay, well, you can look at it that way, but then when you're trying to decide between two teams, it's what happened when they played each other.
It also reinforces the conversation we had about just about every one of these teams in the Power 2 leagues. And I know that's a little bit of a misnomer, but when it comes to baseball, it is Power 2 leagues and everybody else. Everybody's going to have a 2-week stretch. Everybody's going to have a 2-week stretch where either the ball's not bouncing your way, somebody rolled an ankle, you look up and you lose a couple of one-run games on the road. I mean, I don't know. I think the basketball committee has got an easier job than the baseball committee. How about that?
I agree. Let me take a sip of water quickly, and I'm gonna tell you some stuff to watch with every SEC team on the way out. Texas, I don't know what else to say. Texas has gotten to the point where it's just, it's locked into one seed, and it would take a face plant not to be the number one overall seed. I think LSU still needs some quality wins. I think it'll get 3 at South Carolina to end the year, but it goes to A&M this weekend. That's going to be a war, and it's got Arkansas in Baton Rouge. Tennessee is going to need to finish strong. Auburn, Vandy at Arkansas. Georgia gets the conference record gift this weekend when it goes to Missouri. Then it goes to Alabama, and then it finishes with – that's not right, is it? Who's Georgia got to finish the season? I guess it is A&M, right?
Hold on, I'll look it up. I know they definitely play each other.
Yeah, it is. Okay, that's right. I was thinking they'd already played, but they've not. So that's correct. And see, that's the thing. That's what makes this so hard to determine. You've got so many of these marquee teams that are playing each other down the stretch. Vandy ends with Alabama at Tennessee, Kentucky. Again, I think if Vanderbilt gets to 18 in the conference, that's going to be a national seed. Auburn ends in Knoxville, South Carolina at Ole Miss. I think Auburn needs to take one of those road series and sweep South Carolina. You do that. I think it's hard to keep Auburn out of the national seeding picture. Ole Miss has got at Oklahoma, at Mississippi State, Auburn. Very doable. Got some room to make up in the metrics, though. Alabama, I think, has got a tough road. At Vandy, at Florida, with Georgia in between. That's why I don't think Alabama is going to end up hosting, but the metrics are there. We talked about Oklahoma earlier. Ole Miss at Kentucky, Texas. Kentucky, I think, is going to be a 2 or 3 regardless. At Mississippi State, Oklahoma, at Vanderbilt. A&M gets the gift of Missouri to get the conference record up. In between or around that has got to go to Georgia at the end of the season and then host LSU this weekend. And then don't count out Mississippi State entirely. We'll see what the coaching change does. Won in a rout yesterday. Kentucky, Ole Miss at Missouri. There's still enough wins on the table for State to get in the tournament. The quad 1 record is awful, but it's doable. Guys, any parting thoughts?
Job well done, Chris. This is impressive attention to detail. The Missouri Kansas State thing aside.
Yeah, well, sorry about that. If you missed it, I should have swapped Iowa and Kansas State. That'll balance it out. Okay, we'll be back. We'll do this next week. I'll be watching during the weekend. When we do our live shows, we may dive into a little bit of what outcomes are affecting seeding. We'll have predictions coming tomorrow. If you guys don't mind, leave us a super chat when you feel inclined and join our membership tier. That's $3 a month. We're going to start coming out with some bonus content for members only that I think you're going to want to be excited about and want to participate in. Guys, that's the way we make it work here. We got bills to pay. This is what we do for a living. So you gotta underwrite the check somewhere. And super chats, memberships, those kind of things help us. And if you got a business that's looking for a sponsorship, you can reach out to me on Twitter too, at ChrisLee70. We appreciate that. Anyway, this is your wrap up on regional projections for Graham Doty and Jay Greason. I'm Chris Lee. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon with more baseball content at Southeastern 16.